Let's start our last briefing for today. We will discuss access to information as the government become more open after the revolution of dignity. And we are talking to Alisa Roman, online resource access to the truth, Inna Barzela, Chestnut Civic Movement, Tatiana Alexiuk, Media Law Institute, Victor Taran, and Sergei Andrushko, journalist. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues and spectators. Today, we journalists, lawyers who participated in drafting the law on access to public information and on the eve of the day, the right to know, we would like to describe how this law is implemented, what are the achievements and shortcomings, what has changed after the winter events in Ukraine, whether the power became more open, whether it became more responsible for hiding information. Actually, currently our group is 6 months old, and we can discuss some achievements based on the information which we gained through our resource access to the truth. This is the resource where people can request any information from government bodies and get response from them. Within the 6 months, we have received more than 2,000 requests of information, and only 50 of them were satisfied, which suggests that the law on access to information is complied with only by 50%. And there is another side of this coin that people should be proactive and request for information. Actually, our analysis of the requests on our website proves that people are rather active, and we have made split of the topics. The most popular in terms of requests is Kiev City State Administration, which receives the biggest number of requests for information and questions from citizens. Most of questions deal with the spending of public money. The second is the third place is Dnipropetrovsk City Council. The fourth is Lviv City Council, and it shows that quite often people are interested in local issues. Lviv, Dnipropetrovsk, and Kharkiv local council requests show that what is important for people at the local level. In Dnipropetrovsk, the biggest number of questions is dealing with the tenders for and bids for transportation. As for Lviv, the biggest number of questions deal with street advertising and venues for advertising. In Kharkiv, the biggest number of questions is about public spending from the council budget. Also, the law on access to public information had been developed for 3 years. Why it was so important for us to pass this law? Because it required changes to 53 laws of Ukraine. And today we may assess how efficient this law became for compliance with that 53 pieces of legislation. So the access to information to the local city councils, it allows each citizen to be present at the sittings of the local self-government body. And actually, we started to investigate whether this access is provided in practice. And nevertheless, we discovered that despite this legal provision that everybody is allowed to attend the sitting of the self-government body, we discovered that despite of this legal provision, there is no mechanism for doing this. There should be, for example, about Verkhovna Rada. We need to have a special decree signed by Mr. Turchinov. We have sent requests to him about information that he should authorize the Regulations Committee of Verkhovna Rada to develop such procedure for ordinary citizens to be able to attend the sittings of Verkhovna Rada. Also, now I would like to give the floor to Dmytro Andrushka, and who will describe how people can access to information about activities of Verkhovna Rada. Members of Parliament become very scared when they imagine that regular people will observe the sittings of Verkhovna Rada not via TV broadcasting, but directly coming to the session room. And actually, the law allows people to attend Verkhovna Rada sessions since the moment of the law was passed after the Revolution of Dignity. That law was passed immediately after the Revolution of Dignity. And when I asked Mr. Turchinov why this law is inactive, actually, Mr. Turchinov responded that he was waiting for the initiative of the Regulations Committee. The Parliament Regulations Committee has to provide draft procedure for allowing to allow people access the parliament to observe sessions. The Regulations Committee chairman, Mr. Makeenka, member of the Party of Regions, had no sittings of his committee since June 5. Among the committee members, we have Mr. Yefremov, Mr. Pushny. Mr. Pushny is chairman of Ashad Bank board. At the same time, he is a member of parliament. Nevertheless, the regulations of Verkhovna Rada requires committee sittings to be held at least once a month. But despite of this requirement, they did not have this a procedure in place allowing people to enter Verkhovna Rada on the day of sitting and observe how the sitting takes place. Now people can attend Verkhovna Rada, but only as tourists. They can go sightseeing there, but they won't be allowed to be present during the Verkhovna Rada session. My personal opinion is that unless we have this Verkhovna Rada, unless we have Mr. Turchinov as a speaker and and current head of the Regulations Committee, regular citizens won't have this chance to be present at the sessions. Also, I would like to share my observation how members of parliament work during, before the Revolution of Dignity, after the Revolution of Dignity, and I should say that it absolutely changed nothing. Committee sittings could be held anywhere in the parliamentary premises, but they prefer to have their sittings in that very building of Verkhovna Rada, where access to journalists is prohibited because of the presence of Speaker Mr. Turchina. Also, I could provide an example when Member of Parliament Zvania prevented journalists from participation in the meeting, which was not held because of the absence of members of parliament. Also, I would like to share views how the law is complied with by other governmental bodies. For example, I've sent a request to the presidential administration about information how the cars are used by presidential administration. They say that they provide free car service to the presidential administration, but I received no information about that mysterious companies who provide such free services.
Also, there's the same request sent to the Cabinet of Ministers and Ministry of Infrastructure, and that was, please give us the document where the Ministry of Infrastructure was doing repair works in Slavyansk, but the ministry said that we do not have the information on specific places where that was done. But the Cabinet of Ministers sent the list of 28 places, addresses where such repairs were done. Some services want to hide some information, and some want to be more open. Talking about positive, there's the Ministry of Education that opened all the information on all the resolutions that they approve, and these resolutions are could be freely accessed by any citizen, and these are resolutions on financial issues. Thank you. Good afternoon. The colleagues were talking about the access at the central level, and I will tell you about what's happening to the law on public information locally, what local bureaucrats are doing. The Center for Political Studies and Analytics analysis starting from May has been monitoring how the local authorities are executing the law. We have the results for previous years also, and we can make a comparative analysis and compare the trends. The first trend that unfortunately confirms the words of the colleagues that after the Revolution of Dignity, the authorities are not really, there's no improvement. They're not implementing this law. Looking at the figures, we will see that the average was 64, 66, 72, 73%. That's even worse. if and that is after the law 0947 became efficient, which should give more rights to journalists and activists. One of the rights which is actively ignored at the local level. There's an access to information, full access to information. That's what Sergei said. The local authorities, if they give answers, they close this information. Looking at the absolute figures, 53% of regional administrations, 44 of municipal councils do not provide all that information. Again, these are figures worse than compared to the previous year. We see the negative trend. More detailed analysis will be publicized on Monday, and there will be the roundtable in the office of the Ombudsman, and we'll be discussing all these figures. There will be people from the regions there present. And in the end, I would like to mention the regions which are the most closed or the most open. Talking about that, I mean that 6 authorities were monitored: regional administration, municipal, and some towns. Once in 3 months, we would change our focus from the regional center to small towns. The most open authorities in Dnipropetrovsk region, then Sumska, and then Zaporizhia. The most open are those which are in the eastern, and the most closed one, we are monitoring the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, so the Crimea is the most closed. In the Russian Federation, there's no law on access to public information, but we believe that Crimea is Ukraine, and we continue. So Crimea sets the first position, the second Mykolaiv region, Kirovograd is the third, and the fourth is Ternopil region. These are the most closed regions. All that information will be published on Monday, and you will see it in more details. Good afternoon. I'm Inna Barzila, Chesna Movement. We do not often talk about positive, but today we'll talk about that. I want to talk about the success of civil society, how we have got access to tax returns of MPs, because we've been trying to get this information about personal income and property of MPs for 3 years. What they have, we can say that how they live. Basically, we started this movement back in 2011 when there was no law on access to public information. So any information that we could count on was the voluntarily replies to our requests by MPs. There was some anti-corruption legislation which, according to which they had to publish this information in the official mass media, but in fact we had all this data was classified basically. But then the law on access to public information was passed, and we received another instrument, legal instrument, which helped us exercise pressure on MPs. But again, thanks to the pressure from Stop Censorship movement, the movement of journalists, thanks to that, we managed to get access to tax returns. And we received at least some information, even though we had the law on combating corruption and the law on access to public information. Chestnut movement started working on these things back in 2012. About 100 tax returns of MPs were made public at the request of the civil society, but then later we had information about 205 MPs. Some MPs which are more open, more transparent, they were providing this information, not really willing. But it was impossible to get this information from the MPs from the Party of Regions. It all ended up with us filing the case against the apparatus of the Verkhovna Rada to the court, and we won this judicial process, and we received the tax return of Yefremov only now. But after we had the revolution of dignity, after the law 0947 was approved in April, we hope that there will be a big progress. All the instruments were simplified. According to this law, the tax returns were to be published not in some official publication, but it was to be placed on a website of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. But they had to publish it during 1 month. We had only 57 declarations, and that was all at a personal requirement of MP. Despite all this revolution, it wasn't easy to get these tax returns. All this time, Chestnut movement was talking about that at the meetings with MPs. We were sending requests to the Speaker of the Parliament, to the heads of parliamentary factions, but our requests were ignored. And then some personal contacts worked. We explained that to the Speaker of the Parliament, to Turchinov, and on the 27th of August, he issued the resolution according to which all the tax returns were to be put on a website. Then the Ombudsman supported our request, and we had some progress. In a few days, the number from 57 was increased to almost 400. They all put it online, and we needed 8 more tax returns to be put on a website. A month has passed since the 27th of April, but we still are lacking 8 tax returns that we lack to do analysis of the revenues of the MPs. We continue our fighting, but we have a lot of positive because we are progressing. Now our task is to make it not like an exceptional case, but to make it so that this legislation works with any speaker in the parliament. And the next challenge we have, and there will be elections to the parliament. Unfortunately, we failed to change the election rules, and we again are demanding the politicians to disclose their tax returns. We hope that most political forces will provide this information, but then we will compare how much they earned being the MPs.
Good afternoon. I feel that the press conference is moving in right direction. I'm Tatiana Alexeyunk, a lawyer of the Media Law Institute. We are a key partner of the Chestnut movement, and all that cases filed to courts, they are prepared by our lawyers, and we have a special program called Access to Information, which is funded from International Renaissance Foundation. And this program allowed us to reach some progress in terms of access to information. The first filings to court appeared in July 2013, and at that time, that cases were denied from court scrutiny, and nobody actually was going to pay any attention on the law and access to information. In January 2014, when there was Maidan under the windows of members of parliament, we filed another case to the court about access to information about ministers and their deputies. At that time, the court made a negative verdict, and later the courts of appeal made positive verdict. Later on, we again filed cases about denied access to information, and requested for declarations from the members of tax declarations from the members of parliament. And when we failed to get such a property declaration from Yefremov, a member of parliament, and at that time, court made decision, and in result of that court proceedings, we got access to the property declaration by Yefremov. Whether the Revolution of Dignity made a positive effect on the access of information? Yes, sure. First of all, the new law on access to information was passed, number 1170 was passed immediately after the Revolution of Dignity. It allowed to know the plans, and also it imposed responsibility for denied access to information. Just an example, some weeks ago, we have received information how a public official was brought to responsibility for provision of requested information. This shows that the situation is improving, but it is not going so smoothly as we would like to see it. Each time when you are denied in provision of information, we encourage you to address to us. We have a special mechanism in place which requires that before making any piece of information classified, government officials should make a grounded decision whether this classified access is required. This is a three-stage test, and we should force officials to apply this approach continuously. This requires proactive position from you. Any questions from the audience? We have a question. Whether garlic assisted you in your fight against monsters. And my question is whether you received any threats or whether you were somehow intimidated from the influential bureaucrats. The garlic is not the obsolete thing, but we have so dark forces which are opposing us that sometimes we need not just a garlic but a stick. And also about the cases of intimidation. Yes, during election campaigns, we experienced some actions of intimidation. Also, we received false claims. We received messages that our activists were threatened and intimidated in the regions. But nevertheless, we believe that transparency and openness are key things to prevent intimidation. When information is published, there is no reason to frighten people. Also, how do you conduct your analysis? We have a special methodology which was developed several years ago. At that time when it was developed, it was coordinated with the local authorities, and we based that methodology on the international experience. International experience suggests that local self-government bodies should be established and formed jointly by representatives of the civil society in that number. And that methodology was approved. It is based on two components: on active and on the assessment of active and passive access to information. A passive access means that local bodies publicize and communicates information. That is, they publicize all their decisions. Active access means that we disseminate requests for information. And these requests deal with the important social issues. Just an example, in late summer we ask questions about readiness to the new academic year, or in autumn we ask questions about average price of food products. Another example is information about declarations of local MPs. Only 17 local city councils published tax declaration, property declarations of local MPs. And later, this information is publicized and analyzed. We check whether this information is provided on timely basis within time limits prescribed by the law, like 5 days. So we have this detailed description of methodology. And next question, when do you expect to get a response from Mr. Turchinov, and whether you expect to get meaningful response? Have you made any suggestions to Mr. Turchinov? We had preliminary talks with the most advanced members of parliament who promised us to establish working group back in April. Unfortunately, till now, we do not have this procedure in place. Currently, we approached these candidates to the members of parliament. That is, you do not have the vision about proper procedure to be passed by the parliament. Maybe we have our vision, but we believe that this is the role of the parliament to develop such procedure. And as of the moment, we are not aware about the process inside Verkhovna Rada. Probably it looks like they should have something developed already, but we do not know in detail. The procedure should be developed by the Regulations Committee, and then this is the role of Turchinov to sign up this decision. In the Netherlands, every citizen may enter the parliament. In Poland, the day before, you have to send a note to the parliament informing that you are coming. In our country, we had several revolutions one by one, and it couldn't be so easy. For example, this could be based on the number of available seats in the parliament. But about security issues, of course, the security system could work. But, you know, members of parliament in this country are thrown into trashes, and members of parliament, they have their seats at the bottom of the hall. Those people who want to attend the meeting, they could be located on the gallery. And if any person would like to visit the parliament, he may show passport, he may be searched against possession of dangerous objects and thus get free access. If there are no further questions, I would like to thank you to our activists, and we hope that we will have a procedure in addition to the law, and let's hope that the ongoing parliament will be more acceptive to the novelties. We also would like to show you a video.
Наше поколение должно уничтожить монополию власти на інформацію.
Корупція президента, $100 мільйонів – це не абстрактні цифри, це ті 100 гривень, які не отримав вчитель, лікар або пенсіонер з бюджету. Тому люди повинні контролювати владу.
Правда – це зброя. Пишіть запити, запитуйте, озброюйтесь правдою.
Свобода – это в том числе отсутствие искусственно возведенных барьеров. Свободные люди не боятся фактов, они готовы знать правду.
Доступ до інформації – це наступ на тих, хто приховує правду. Це заступ, яким ту правду викопують. Доступ – це наш спільний поступ.
Я думаю, значить я живу. Для того, щоб думати, мені потрібно знати.
Якщо тобі все зрозуміло, це значить, що тобі не про все говорять. А чим менше ти знаєш, тим більше підозрюєш. Знати все – це свобода. І життя без страху.
Ми повинні слідкувати за кожним кроком чиновника. Оскільки він зазвичай спізнюється на роботу, чи звідки в нього гроші на польоти в Австрію. Це наше право і наш обов'язок. Так ми отримуємо владу над ними.
Боротися за правду – це як займатися спортом. Це вимагає певних зусиль, втім ви маєте конкретний результат і дуже задоволені собою.
Моя робота – шукати правду. Я знаю, вони ховають її у темряві. Давайте разом проллємо світло на важливе. Більше знаєш, краще спиш.
Єдине джерело влади в Україні – це народ. Так написано в Конституції. Контролювати владу означає нагадати їй, що ці слова не жарт.
Я уже написав 200 запитів до влади. Дивіться, ось їхні відповіді. Я уже змусив владу говорити правду. Дізнайтесь правду і ви. Напишіть запит.
Чудово, справді таке мотивуюче відео. Дуже дякую. Я сподіваюся, що завдяки
Thank you very much. I hope that due to our today's briefing, more people will get access to the truth. Thank you.